Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining today. My name is Gina Fulton and I am the marketing coordinator at the Estimating Edge. Today, James Lee, our business analyst, will be covering the introduction to Vector, followed by Bob Ostrander, our Vector sales representative, who will be answering any questions you may have at the end. Before we get started, we have a couple housekeeping items. All lines have been muted, but we will answer questions after the webinar. To ask questions, enter them in the questions window. We will answer them at the end. I will send you an email that has a recorded link. The recording will also be available to watch on demand on our website. When you leave the webinar today, a pop-up window will open with a 3-question survey. One of the questions is what topic you'd like to see in upcoming webinars. We'd love your feedback. Thank you for joining. James, let's get started.
Thank you very much, Gina. So as Gina said, my name is James Lee. For any of those who haven't met me, I'm the business analyst here at the Edge. And I just want to start by thanking all of you very much for your time and showing up for this webinar here today. So what we're going to be showing you is a new model-based estimating solution called Vector. And specifically, we're going to be looking at a level of service called Vector Professional. Now, although we're going to be showing you a new software today, the first thing I want to say is that this application will pair with our existing flagship estimating software, the Edge. Okay, so it's not meant to replace the Edge. It's just a web application that's going to pair with it. And even though we're showing you something new today, we just want to remind you we are still the same Estimating Edge. We're an over 30-year-old company selling software for you as a service, still have products centered around estimating and project management, and we still have the same team of construction estimating experts and former tradesmen who understand you and who you've been working with for so long. Now, let's talk about Vector and understand it a little bit before we actually get into seeing how it works. All right, so Vector is a web-based application. So that allows us to push new features and updates lightning fast. It allows us to handle the technology more sustainably. So whenever there's new features, you don't have to go and download a new local version. It's just going to be there for you automatically. Okay, and it's all going to function through the cloud, similar to lots of features with the EDGE Estimator. And I said the word model-based estimating. What do I mean? What's so groundbreaking about that? Right now in the EDGE Estimator, you're uploading PDF, 2D PDF plans, and you're digitally tracing over these plans. Vector is going to allow you to upload 3-dimensional models. Specifically, what I mean is Revit files. Okay, so there are other types of 3D files like IFC or AutoCAD, but for version 1 of this application, it's just Revit. We will work on accepting those in the future. Okay, so this is going to allow you to view information and specifically shapes and quantities that the architect has already created for us. So the goal here is instead of digitally tracing and using a scale to create all your quantities over 2D plans, we're just going to extract all of those quantities that are already there and show you how to easily map those to the conditions you use in the Edge right now. Okay, so this is going to allow you to learn how to understand the Revit data and these 3D models without having to buy new machines or keep Revit open on your computer and learn how to use Revit as a whole. It's a much more simplified interface than that. Okay, and just talking more about these models, if you're familiar with 3D models at all, if you do receive them, and if you don't, you should definitely start asking for them. There's going to be so much data inside of these models, right? Because we know that in the life cycle of a construction project, there's many different trades that are going to be working on the job. So that may seem overwhelming and like too much data that you don't want to see. But we have functionality that will easily allow you to filter out what's not relevant to your scope of work. That's going to be called our filtering process, and I'll show you that a little bit later. All right, and we've actually been told by our customers that Vector can speed up the takeoff process by up to 80%. Okay, so again, we're not here to replace the estimating side of things. We want you to still use your industry knowledge with your built out conditions and formulas and items that you've been building up over the years. We're just here to give you a way to take off faster. And like it says here on the screen, spend more time estimating and less on digitally tracing. All right, and we can do this because we have the shapes and the elements from the model that contain the quantities that the architect gives us. Okay, so again, this is just a reminder, it integrates with the Edge. We're going to be pushing data from the model to the EDGE Estimator, and you'll still have your conditions, you'll still have your items, all your formulas. And what I want you to watch out for once we get into the Edge is how we take the shapes from the model, we visualize their quantities, and we map them to the conditions that you use every day. Okay, it's going to be at the click of a button. We're going to be able to aggregate quantities across entire sections at one time. All right, it's really the next level of takeoff for you. And then from there, you'll just be completing your bid process in the Edge with pricing and labor and recap and reports as you normally do now. All right. So now that we've kind of got an overview of Vector, what I'm going to do is go ahead and open up Vector itself and show you what the workflow is going to look like. So if you see on my screen here, I'm actually in what we call the administration portal that a lot of you are probably familiar with. It's where you can do things like add users, control licenses, download new versions of the Edge. But you'll see a Vector tab here once you purchase Vector. And we're starting on a screen called the Bid Preparation Manager. Now, you'll see any bids that your company currently has active. If we hit this Start New Bid Prep button, then we'll be able to enter in some basic information and create a new bid. Okay, so we'll just say new bid, Vector, Fireproofing 113. We can do a bid number. We can go ahead and put some information in here, a project address, various different date fields. And when we hit Create New Bid, it's going to pop it right into the list. New bid, Vector, FP, just like I typed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click into that bid. This is what we call the overview screen. It's mostly informational. We can edit the bid information that we just inputted. We have a collaborative notes section where you can communicate with your team. We have an events grid that'll give you updates on significant actions throughout the application. We'll come back to that later. And if you want, you can define the owner, architect, GC, or builder on the job. But you can also do this in the Edge as well. So we're going to keep it moving. What we're going to do is jump into the file manager now. And I keep talking about these Revit files. All right, and just a reminder, if you can get Revit files from your GC or your architect, then this is going to be a great product for you. And if you can't get them, ask for them because you might be able to. But if you do, you just hit this upload file button right here. You grab the file from your file explorer and you hit open. And then a pop-up window is going to come with the name of the file. You simply just hit add. And then this other new window will appear. Now, the Revit upload process really is in two parts. First, we just need to push the file itself to the cloud. So all you need to do is keep your laptop or computer open, connected to internet, and keep this window as long as the main window open until this reaches 100%. And that typically only takes about 10 to 20 minutes, and for quick files, it's even less than that. Okay, and then once it gets to 100%, you can shut off your computer, you can disconnect from internet, you can go about your life, and it'll finish processing in the cloud. Okay, we'll accept any Revit files that are newer than 2018. All right, so I already have a Revit file that's been uploaded for us, so we can go take a look at what it looks like once it's fully complete. I'm gonna X out of here and we're gonna jump back to our bid preparation manager for a moment and jump into a bid called Webinar Fireproofing 113. All right, so here's that overview screen again. If I look in the events tab on the right-hand side, we will see that we started the upload of a Revit file, and if we skip to the top, we see that smart file or Revit file processed successfully. All right, so let's go to our file manager and take a look at what we'd see with a successful upload. So if you're familiar with Revit files at all, what you're seeing here is all of the various sheets that the architect has made available inside of the Revit model. Now, these are so much more than just a background image. These are going to contain shapes that are 2D representations of the 3D model that contain all of these quantities, dimensions, and information that I keep talking about. All right, so we're going to be diving deep inside of these sheets throughout the workflow today. On this screen, you can edit, you can delete, you can rename, you can add security functionality to these sheets. But for right now, I just wanted you to visualize these. What we're going to do is start diving into the data inside of them. Okay, so we're going to move with the toolbar on the left-hand side from File to our Filter Manager. All right, so now let's circle back to what we know about three-dimensional models and specifically Revit files. We know that typically, unless they've been trimmed down or edited, they're going to contain data for the whole life cycle of the project. So multiple trades worth of data. And we talked about, that might seem overwhelming and might seem like it's going to make your life more difficult. But we provide you a super easy and efficient way to filter out what's not important to you and just focus in on what's relevant to your scope of work. And that's called our filtering process. So what we're going to do is just what you would think and hit this Add New Filter button. And we're going to go ahead and give this filter a relevant name. We're going to call this Structural Framing and Columns 113. And then I'm just going to hit this Add Filter button. And it pops into our list on the left-hand side. Now, right beneath the name of the filter, we see three branches. categories, families, and properties. Now, these are terms you may or may not be familiar with, but all they are different identifiers that help us organize and filter the data inside of the Revit file. Every piece of data belongs to a category, a family, and has its own properties. It's as simple as that. So we're just going to use that to say, hey, I want data from this category or this family and not the other, okay? And they do have a relationship with each other. We want to start from the top down. So all we do is hover over categories and hit this Edit Categories button. And now we're inside what we call the filter wizard at the categories level. So we're going to expand next to where it says model. And this is what I mean by the broad set of data. Here we have different categories of data. We have floors, structural foundations, structural framing, connections, columns, walls. So if I was an interior contractor, I'd flip on walls. If I was a concrete contractor, I'd flip on foundations. What we're going to do today is we're going to flip on structural framing because that's going to contain our beams and box columns, etc. And we're going to flip on structural columns. A lot of you would probably bring in these connections as well, but I'm going to leave those off just so we're working with an efficient amount of data today. And we'll come back to these floors in a minute. All right, I promise. So it's as simple as that at the category level. You just use your industry knowledge to go ahead and identify what's relevant to you. And then we hit this arrow down here to move into the families portion. All right, so now we're going to get a little more specific. We see our two categories here, columns and framing. And if I expand next to columns, now I'm seeing some more specific descriptions that the architect has inputted. We see instead of just structural columns, we have box columns and hollow structural sections, which will be our tubes, and then some other round columns, which are our tubes as well. Those are called family names, all right, the box column that you see here. And we can take it even one step further and actually identify the different column types. These descriptions that you see here that say box and then the dimensions after are what we call family types, all right? And we're going to be working with those heavily today. And you can see they're just a lot more descriptive than structural columns or even box column. So if we know that we're only going to be working with box columns of a certain dimension, you can flip on the ones that are relevant, and any that you don't toggle will not come into the job. Okay, but I imagine most of the time it's going to be as simple as looking at all of these saying, yeah, you know what, I want all these tubes and columns. I'm going to be building all of these. You simply just hit this toggle all button and it'll turn on all these columns across all your different families here. And we'll do the same for our framing. If we open that up and look at our wide flange, take a look at this comprehensive list of beams here. All right, so you don't have to hunt them down. Everything that the architect said is involved with this job is listed here. And in reality, what you'll be doing most of the time is just hitting this toggle all button. I'm just going to toggle all of the families and family types in the structural framing category on, okay? And most of the time, it's as simple as that. Really, it's not going to get much more complicated than that. We're showing you textual versions of the Revit model without you having to open a heavy 3D model or search around and estimate in 3D. It's a super simple interface, and it really should be intuitive to you based on what you know about the industry, and especially if you have knowledge about Revit models. This is a walk in the park, okay? And again, 99% of the time, you're done right here. You just hit this save and close button and you're finished. I do want to just show you briefly, if you really want to get granular, you can filter more at the properties level. And you can filter by things such as the length of a beam, right? I can go ahead and hit this length property and see all the prospective values that'll appear within this project. And if I know that I'm only working with beams of a certain length, I toggle on what length I want to filter by, and I'll only see beams of that length in the project. Okay, and there's tons of different properties of these different families that we brought in here. You know, you can filter by whether the base is attached to a certain level or things like that. But most of the time, again, around 90 or 99% of the time, you'll really just need to stop at this family level here. I just wanted to show you how granular it can get. All right, so then I hit this save and close button. And my filter on this left side will now show us all the different categories and families I've built. And right here in the right-hand section, we're listing out all of the sheets that contain the data we said we want to see. All right. So what I'm going to do really quick is I want to create another filter. This is just a pro tip for you right here. What I'm going to do is create another filter for our decks and slabs. All right, and we're going to add that. And I'm going to hit this button that says Pop Wizard because it'll open it up right away. And I want to show you what's in this floors category I promised we would come back to. If we check out the families in that, we've got our roof deck, our concrete slab, our metal deck. So it's just as easy to find those and bring those in as well. I know that was probably on your mind. So I hit save and close. Boom, I'm done. So I've just filtered through the data in about 2 minutes. I mean, when you're not in a demo, you'll be doing this even quicker. So it is not hard to maneuver through these files and see what you need to see, all right? So now we've completed the filtering process, all right? We've learned some new things, but we still kept it really easy for you. Now we're gonna do something that you should really be familiar with. We need to just build up your bid structure, meaning your scenarios and your sections and your pages. And your pages will just be based off of these sheets right here. So we're going to allow you to do that on the web as well. And I want to show you how much faster you can build your bid structure here in Vector on the web than it is on the Edge. Okay, so we're just going to click on our structural framing and column scenario. I'm sorry, our filter set, and then we're going to hit this create scenario button. And we're just going to give this a name. We're going to call this structural all 113. And now we're going to select our group of engineering plans. That'll just be all of our structural plans. We don't need our sections because we don't want to take off from a section plan typically, right? Our section plans will still exist in our file manager for reference, but we really just want to take off using our structural plans. So I'm going to hit create scenario and navigate. And what it's going to do, it's going to take us to a new screen that you have not seen yet called the build screen. And if I hover over that, it just says manage bid structure. That's exactly what we're going to do. So when I hit that create scenario button, look what it did. It populated a scenario for me automatically. It automatically added a section within that scenario, and it took all of the sheets that contain the data we wanted to see and automatically brought them in right here inside of our scenario. So at the click of one button, I built my entire bid structure. Now, all I need to do now is just do some slight editing. We see here we have some copies of our structural plans. We have some stair plans. I'm not really gonna want to take off with those. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my search bar. I'm gonna search up the word stair, and I'm gonna grab any of these plans with stair in it, and I'm just gonna remove them from my scenario. Okay, again, they're still gonna be in the file manager for reference, but I don't wanna take off on them, so I'm just gonna remove them. Same thing that you would do in the Edge if you have pages you don't wanna take off on. Then I'm going to search up the word copy. I'm going to get rid of any of these that say copy because we really just want to work with one copy of each level of the job. So there I go. That's how easy it is to get rid of plans that you don't need. And now look, I've just really simplified things. I've got my level 2, level 3, and my roof framing plan. Okay. So I'm going to rename this section right here. We're going to call this beams and columns. And now I want to go ahead and click on one of these pages and show you what came over. So we've got the background image that you saw as a preview in the file manager. If you take a look at the bottom here, we bring over the scale as inputted for this sheet by the architect. But you're also seeing, if we zoom in a little bit, all of these green lines and what looks like shapes. What is that? Well, right now in the Edge, you're tracing digitally over a 2D plan. And what you're doing is you're creating these shapes right here. These are 2D representations of the 3-dimensional model that we've just flattened out for you. So this is what I meant. Why take this off when in a matter of minutes, I can extract these shapes from the Revit file for you? Okay, and if we dig even deeper, if I select one of these shapes and hit this properties tab on the right-hand side, here is a bunch of information that the architect has inputted for us about this beam. Now, because this plan is labeled, I know that it's a 30 by 108, and I know that it's primary beam because I see it's attached to the columns here. But if I scroll down, I can look at this filter section and see, okay, this is a 30 by 108 beam. It belongs to this family and this category. But most importantly is this dimensions tab, all right? There's some measurements here that may or may not be relevant to us, but this length of 33 feet is really what's going to be important to us. The architect already has the quantity for this beam in there for us. So all we need to do is take that 33 feet, and once we get to the EDGE Estimator, we're just going to, at the click of a button, map that 33 feet to one of our conditions, all right? That's the goal here. So keep that in mind as we're moving forward. All right, and all of these properties are the same properties that we were able to filter by at the filter screen that we went through. Okay, and I can even click on a column and look at the same thing. I've got a column length, I've got a volume, I can see what kind of column this is. All right, so super useful. Now, I want to do one other thing. We don't see any of the decks or concrete slabs involved yet, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this section right here with all of our plans. And now I'm going to rename this section. We're going to call it deck and slabs 113. There we go. And I've got each of these plans listed out. So I'm just gonna give you another pro tip here. And for each one of these pages, I'm gonna change the filter set to our decks and slabs. And let me show you what that's gonna give us the power to do and why this is recommended and why this is useful for us. Okay, so there we go at the click of a button. I'm just changing what filter set and what data is going to appear for these pages. Now I can click on the shapes that appear and see, oh, this is my 3 1/4 inch lightweight concrete that's gonna go over my 3-inch metal deck. All right, or if I go to level 3, I can even hit this filters tab over here and we'll show you what filters you have applied to this page. I can expand next to the floor category and see, oh, this is all, again, the 3 1/4 inch lightweight concrete over the 3-inch metal deck. If I go to the roof plan over here and hit properties, I've got the metal roof deck. So I've got my deck separated from my beams and columns so that I can work with them separately. They're not all interacting with each other and making it hard to see. It's super easy to visualize. Okay, so again, we're taking the data from this 3D model and we're showing it to you in a way that you can understand it. This is really next level technology and what we're able to extract and show you here. Okay, there's really nothing like this. All right, and if you think what you're seeing now is groundbreaking and cool, before we push this data to the edge, I want to show you something that takes this to even a whole nother ability, okay? We have a functionality called the 3D viewer, all right? So as we've been talking about, and what you're seeing in the background is the 2D representation of the 3D model, okay? But what you're seeing on the screen here is the actual 3D model itself extracted from the file. Okay, so look at how clear and crisp this model is and the insight that it can give us. It's so easy to just move left or right or zoom in a little bit and then, you know, change the angle that we're looking left or right. I can zoom in and take a look at one of these columns and then look underneath and look, I can even see the structural connector pieces that connect the columns to the beams. I mean, that's how granular we can get here. It's really so simple, all right? And now I want to take this even further for you. All right, I'm going to make this even cooler and even more technological. Okay, if I go ahead and zoom in and let's just focus on this section right here, I'm going to minus this out. Now, before I do anything else, actually, I just want to mention, typically, this would be open on a whole separate monitor for you, all right? And you would have the build screen and then your 3-dimensional model open on a separate monitor, but I can only share one screen for the webinar today, okay? And I just wanted to keep some of the shapes in the background so you see the context. But let's see what happens if I go ahead and select a group of beams that are 2D representations on the build screen and then open up the model. Take a look at what it did. It actually highlighted those beams in the 3D model. They are synchronized. So not only are we able to extract the data, show it to you in 2D and show it to you in 3D, but they're actually synchronized together so it understands what you're doing and what you want to see. I mean, this is new technology. It's beyond cool. It's so intelligent. And I'm not even done. We can take it a step further, right? This is where it really gets me excited. If I hold shift and keep the selection of beams that I have and go ahead and select this column here, now when I go back to the model, look what it did. It actually focused in on that column for me. And I can see where it's located on the model. It's highlighted. And the idea of this is to look for any design conflicts, right? To visualize if there's anything that you, in terms of a new material or labor that you may need to bring into this estimate that you wouldn't have been able to see in the 2D format. Okay, or at the very basic level, it's just giving you an idea as to what you're going to be building and what it should look like, and just help you identify things that you may not be able to identify just on 2D plans. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this for now, and then I'll clear out my selection here. So I could spend all day in that 3D model, I really could. But what I want to do now is do what I promised, and I want to take this data and push it to the EDGE Estimator, okay? And it's so simple to do. All I got to do is hit this Export to Edge button, select the scenario of my choice, and hit this Export button right here. Now, I've already done that for us, and what we'll see is we'll get a toaster notification up here that says, hey, you've successfully exported this scenario, and then you'll get a icon of the EDGE logo right here next to the scenario you've exported, all right? So keep in mind the name of this bid is Webinar Fireproofing 113. let's go ahead and pull up the EDGE and look at the name of the bid. It's the exact same. So easy to identify. You just search that up in your search bar and it'll be in your EDGE bids database, no problem. Okay, and here's the scenario that I exported, structural all, and you're familiar with the checkout process. You just make sure that's checked out. So we just use the cloud to push all that data from one application to the other. I mean, the cloud gives us so much functionality. And so we're going to step inside of this scenario. Here's the 2 sections we built. We brought over that entire structure. We'll start by going to our framing and columns section. Here's our pages, the level 2, level 3, and the roof plan, okay? And the scale comes over just like we saw in Vector. And now we're gonna jump to a functionality that, again, you're familiar with. We're just gonna add some conditions to this job, all right? Now, if you don't use project conditions, then you should really learn about that and get on it, because not only do they pair so well with the Vector functionality, but just in the EDGE alone, they provide a way to almost complete takeoff and add your conditions to relevant pages at the same time. And if you don't know this already, if you have a project condition that exists on 5 pages, if you make a change to that project condition in just one location, it's going to apply to all 5 pages. So they are big time savers, and they're really not difficult to use. So what we'll do is we'll just jump into a project conditions page, and I've already got some project conditions added into the job for us. I've got a couple primary beams, a couple secondary beams, and a calcs condition, as well as a box column, so we can look at a count as well. And then if I go into my deck and slabs section, I've also got a calcs condition and just an area deck surface as well. Okay, we're going to start with our framing and columns. Now, a lot of you, to add these conditions, you know, what you're probably doing now is opening your takeoff screen, and you know, you're at a page level view, and you're just going to be looking on the plan for, you know, the label and just making sure you're adding a condition for every one of these beams and columns here and everything like that. So, you know, you can still be at the condition level and use this add button and do that just like you do now. All right, but I want to show you there's some other ways that can help you add conditions now because of Vector, right? So you can also keep Vector open on the web here, and in your file manager, you can open up one of these structural plans on the web, and it's just very fast and very clear. You can also reference this web interface and just add everything you need to add based on what you see on the plan here. Also, if we jump to our filter list, you saw when we brought in our filters, we have a comprehensive list, for example, of all the wide flange beams that we need to bring in. So you don't even need to go hunt them down. I mean, this serves as a checklist to make sure that you've brought everything in. Okay, so, you know, keep your web tab open. It provides a lot of data for you, and you can always jump back and forth and do what you need to do, all right? But now we're back in the EDGE. Let's say we've got all of our project conditions added. Now we're going to jump to the takeoff portion. And now, I know I told you to keep this in mind, we are going to look at how to take the quantities that we saw inside of the dimensions and the properties of these shapes and map them to the conditions that you've added to the job, all right? So I'm going to start by just clicking on this 30 by 108 primary beam. We're going to start at level 2 because that's the first level of the job. Level 1 of this job is just concrete foundations, as we saw when we opened up the 3D model. Okay, an example of where it can provide you some information. All right, and let's just make this a little bit larger here. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can start aggregating quantities. I'm going to start really simple and work us up to the most efficient method. All right, so first thing that I can do is I'm selected on this 30 by 108 primary beam. I'm going to go ahead and add it to a page, right? The level 2 structural plan. And then once it's added to that page, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move to that page. All right, so now I'm looking at this level 2 framing plan, and I see all of those same shapes that we saw in Vector on the web. And I can click on those, I can hit this general tab, and look, we've got all those same properties that we showed you on the web available here. Here's the family type, here's the length, 33 feet. I want you to keep that length in mind, all right? And here's our 30 by 108 beam. So now I want to focus your attention on some of these fields over to the right under filters. These are going to be some fields that you haven't seen before because they're related to the Vector functionality. So what you're going to do first is in this condition dropdown, you're going to choose what condition you want to send that length dimension to. And of course, because this is a 30 by 108 beam, we want to choose that condition which has been added to our page. And then I want to choose my C quantity. And now once my shape is selected, you'll see that this button right here automatically becomes clickable. It says assign, all right? So again, remember what we wanna do is take that length dimension and give it to our condition. It's so easy to do, all I gotta do is hit assign, boom. Now let's take a look at what happened. The color changed of that element to blue because that's the color that was defined in the condition properties for that condition, all right? And if we click on that condition, we see 33.58 lineal feet. That's the same length dimension that we saw in the properties as inputted by the architect. There is no accuracy lost here. It is so simple and so easy as opposed to having to trace that and maybe being off by a little bit. And I know you guys have really perfected your takeoff over the years, but this is just so much more efficient and takes so much of the pressure off of you, all right? So I know what you're probably thinking. You're saying, James, that's great, right? That's easy, but what? So I still got to go and click each individual beam and make sure the condition's added to the page and find it. I mean, that's going to take me just as long as it takes to draw everything. Well, I'll give you that. All right, let's take it a step further then. Let's jump back to our project conditions view. Let's pick a different surface here. Let's do our 30 by 132 primary beam, okay? So we saw in Vector on the build screen that when we're on a page, we could hit this filters tab and see what filters are on the page. And when we click on a family, it's going to just identify where all these 30 by 132 beams are on the plan. So guess what? We bring that out to your takeoff screen in the Edge as well. I hit this families drop down here, okay? I make sure that all my fields are filled out. I open up families. Here's all of those filters that we brought in that exist on this page. I open up wide flange. Look at that, 30 by 132 is right there. I go ahead and give that a click. It's automatically detected 48 instances of that 30 by 132 beam just on this page. Okay, so you don't need to hunt them down. We can just use the filter data that's intelligent and just show you where they all are at the click of a button. We've got 48 shapes selected. And now I hit assign the same way. And look at all the lineal footage I've just populated. I've aggregated the length quantity for all of the 30 by 132 beams on this page in a matter of seconds, okay? So that is, if that's not so much quicker, then I don't know what to tell you, but okay, I know you're thinking, okay, well, James, you showed me I don't have to do it one shape at a time, but I still got to go one page at a time. I'd love to be able to speed it up even more. What if I told you we're not even done and that we could take this to another level? I mean, we know that the three-dimensional model has all kinds of data that we should be able to read across all of these sheets. So why limit it to just one page? You don't have to. All right, let's now go and focus on our 30 by 124 primary beam. And we've got our C quantity and our condition selected, but instead of this, we're gonna look at this scope drop down now that we haven't looked at yet. That's been set at the page level. What if I change it to section? What does that mean? Now let's go find this 30 by 124 primary beam. Okay, we'll just scroll this down a little. 30 by 124, here it is. I go ahead and select that. Okay, so we've got two on this page, but let's see what happens when I hit assign. It says, are you sure you want to apply to the entire section? All right, and notice that when I would just, aggregate the quantities at the page level, just one page would pop up under the project condition here. But now when I hit yes, look at what it did. We've only focused so far on the level 2 structural plan. So why do we see the level 3 and the roof plan underneath that condition? What's going on? Let me tell you, right? So what we've done is, since you told us to look for this 30 by 124 primary beam, we have checked on all of the sheets in this section whether that 30 by 124 primary beam exists. If it does, which it did in this case, we're going to automatically take this surface and give it to that page, and then we're automatically going to aggregate the quantities across all of those pages for you. So for this 30 by 124 primary beam, I've aggregated the takeoff quantities for it across 3 pages, all by the click of one button. This is the power of Vector. This is how we're going to speed up your takeoff process by up to 80%. No more clicking and dragging one condition at a time, one page at a time. Now it's click, and you've got takeoff for the entire section all at once, okay? And now all we need to do is just simply use our project conditions as a checklist, okay? Great, now we're looking for our 16 by 31 secondary beam. We just go ahead and scroll down and look for our 16 by 31. There it is, boom, assign, yes, 3 pages aggregated again. Let's make sure we get our 30 by 108 across all of the pages. Everything's selected. We look for 30 by 108. There it is. Assign. Yes. Boom. Across 2 pages. It didn't exist on the roof plan, just 2. We've only got 1 or 2 beams left. We're basically covering about 7 beams in the span of like a minute here. Now we're just going to look for our 12 by 14. We just find it in our list here. There it is. 12 by 14. Assign. Yes. Boom. 30 by 132. I mean, we're almost done here in the span of a second. We're going to find 30 by 132. Here it is right at the top. Boom. And it's already been done, that one. We're going to do 16 by 26. We'll find that in our list. There it is. Go ahead and change that. Yes. Boom. We've just completed all these beams. Okay. Now I didn't obviously bring every beam for this job in here for the sake of time, but I mean, you can see just how much quicker this actually is. Same thing for my box column, no different. I just find I make sure my seed quantity and condition are set. I find my box column family the same as I would my beam. I select it, I hit assign, I hit yes, and now I've just aggregated the box columns across the entire section. So for all the project conditions I brought in, we've completed takeoff for this entire section. And honestly, if you're not in a demo, if you're just working, you're going to be even faster once we teach you how to operate here. Now let's really quickly jump out of here. Let's go into our decks and slabs. I'll just briefly show you what it looks like with an area aggregation, right? So there we go. I'm just going to select my metal deck. We're going to go ahead and we'll just start at the level 2 plan. I go ahead and hit families, floor. I find my concrete metal deck. I hit assign. Now I've just aggregated 28,749 square feet for this page. Okay, it works the exact same way. It's so easy and so simple. And once you populate all of these project conditions, you are done. Then from here, you're just going to X out and you're going to jump into your pricing and you're going to price out your materials the same way that you do now. The only thing that changes is the ability to upload the 3D models and then take off quicker. You're still using your industry knowledge, your same items, your same conditions. I can't stress that enough. The EDGE is not being replaced. It's being enhanced. Okay, we jump to your labor, no problem. That's all the same as you have it now. You go to recap, you add your markups, you send reports, whatever you need to do, the same way that you're doing it now. This is the new workflow that Vector Professional can offer you, okay? We're so excited to share this with you. This is brand new technology we've been working so hard on. It's only going to get better from this point on too. So at this point, what I'd like to do is just open it up for any questions, Bob.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We do have a couple of questions here, James. First question, is it just as easy to unassign a shape from a condition as it is to assign it?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Let's say that, we accidentally assign something to the wrong condition, right? Or we just need to kind of make an adjustment. No problem, right? We need to make sure that we're able to do that. So let's go back to our project conditions view. We'll open up our takeoff screen here. So all you got to do is just focus on whatever condition it is that you want to change. Okay, we're going to go ahead and grab our level 2 plan again. So you can either click on an individual shape, and you can unassign individual shapes if you want to keep all of the others, but just get rid of one, you can do that. Or it'll automatically let you just unassign all of the shapes that you've previously assigned from this condition. Boom, I've just set this page's quantity for that condition back to 0. So it is very simple to undo your mistakes. Then you could switch to a different condition and grab that beam and assign it to the right place.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. I do have another question here. It
Sure.
says, although I like the mass assign feature, can I view and select individual shapes instead of just mass assigning?
That's a great question. You know, sometimes you might want to get granular and look at things with a little more specificity. So all we got to do is, instead of just being at our project conditions view here, we looked at this briefly, but if we jump to the page view, right, we've got all of these shapes there. And then you can select individual shapes and hit the assign button in the exact same fashion. You just choose your condition from the list. You can even lasso and grab entire groups of shapes and assign those as well. And I mean, when you're selecting individual shapes, you can look at the properties and analyze it. You have the same functionality. And then one thing that I didn't mention that I want to stress, you can still take off in 2D the same way that you do now if you need to. If there's something that you need to add to the job that the model doesn't have, even though that's unlikely, you can still click and draw a line in the same fashion that you do now in the Edge. So that's no different. The Edge is not changing again, it's just being enhanced. I believe that question should be all taken care of, Bob.
Yes, and actually that was the next question, so thanks for sharing that. So you got that answered as well. So if anyone else has any other questions, please forward them on. We will answer those questions as soon as possible and get those answers to you. Fantastic job, James. We really appreciate James's passion. I think today you've heard that passion from James about this product. Our team, like James said, is extremely excited about delivering another quality product to the marketplace. And with this product complementing the Edge the way it does, we just know that it's sky's the limit here. We thank you for your interest. We thank you for your business and your interest in Vector. Please reach out if you have any questions in reference to next steps in adding Vector Professional to your Estimating Edge agreement. Have a great day, and thanks for attending.